if there's like a lesson to this, I am a lazy dev. I want to make my life as easy as possible, because people like Paul, like
Yeah.
Remix is a full stack thing. Like you could just set up like Prisma and just make your like directly
Yeah.
to the database. I'm like, yeah, great, but
Yeah.
it takes time. I'm lazy, so I'll just use Strapi
Yeah.
and Remix.
Hey, I'm Brooks, and I'm joined here with Paul to talk about Strapi and headless CMSs and how to integrate them with Remix and all that goodness. So I'm super excited to have Paul here. He actually goes to the Remix Austin meetup, which is a meetup that I run. And so, yeah, Paul, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into programming? Why do you love Strapi? Why do you love Remix? All that jazz.
Hey, how's it going? By the way, the best ever meetup ever in
Oh, thanks.
Austin, Texas. So if you're in Austin area, stop on by. Brooks does an amazing job. But thank you for having me. Awesome to be here. So my so the way I started in development is late in life. I actually used to teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA for a long time. Then I got injured, and I was like, man, this is not working out. So at 35, I started to learn to code. And one issue I was running into is that there's too much to learn. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to focus on front end, but I still wanted to build full stack applications, learn how to work with APIs. And so instead of like trying to dive into back end, I found this amazing headless CMS, Strapi, and it allowed me to, as a front end developer, build full stack applications and slowly learn over time, all the cool concepts that come with working with APIs and stuff. And so to me, it was like really, really awesome. And the one thing that I realized is like, as a developer, there's so much to learn. And so I'm always trying to find a way to help beginners to kind of get building things quickly. And when I discovered Remix, it just made so much sense to me, because it was like very few items that you kind of had to keep like in your mind when building. It's like you have the loader functions, you have the action functions, you have error boundaries, and then React Router, like underneath the hood, it just does all this magical stuff. And so to me, combining both like Strapi and Remix just like made perfect sense.
That's super cool. Yeah, I love that. I honestly haven't used Strapi much, but you've of course talked about it at the meetup and whatnot. And one thing that, like, if my understanding is right, one thing I love about it is that it's like you can basically deploy it wherever you want. Like, and you can kind of really control and own the CMS, which I think is super cool. Do I have that
Yeah,
right?
no, yeah, 100%. Similar to Remix, like where you could deploy it anywhere, use any solution you want. You could use Heroku, you could use Render,
Yeah.
DigitalOcean. We do have Strapi Cloud. It's more for small businesses and agencies and stuff like that. But so many different ways to deploy Strapi. So yeah, I love the part that you could stay in control of your data if that's like important to you. So yeah, cool.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, yeah, I know that you've created a Strapi remix starter, and you kind of want to show how to get up and running with that and all the cool things you can do. So should we get into that?
Yeah, 100%. And just quick caveat, I'm not a 10x developer. And again, I want to really make sure that I have something that new developers could kind of get in and start with. And also, it is an open project. So if you're an amazing developer and you like to contribute to make this integration better, you're more than welcome.
Sweet. Yeah, I love it.
And so you could go ahead once you find the project on GitHub, clone the code, and set up in your terminal.
Cool.
And
Yeah, it might take just a
yeah,
second.
while it's taking this stuff, you could
Yeah.
go on strapi.io. Might as
Oh
well
yeah, yeah,
do
yeah.
the big shout outs to.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So Strapi, by the way, is the easiest thing to get started with, because you just run that npx create Strapi app at latest command, and within 2 minutes, you're gonna have this amazing admin panel for you to manage all your content, and you'll have an API that both supports REST and GraphQL. And so if you're a beginner, you could literally just start with it out of the box. But
That's cool.
if you wanted to customize it deeper, you have access through code to customize and add extra controllers, services, add middleware, policies, all the great stuff. And we also have a pretty cool plugin ecosystem where if there's a functionality that doesn't exist, you could go ahead and create a plugin. And that way, not only can you add additional functionality to your Strapi app, but you could share it with others.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's super cool. Nice. Okay. Yeah, I like it. And yeah, again, like I like that. I don't know. It's super interesting to me. That's like you said, you have the cloud, which is really helpful if you're, yeah, small businesses and whatnot. Like it sometimes it's nice to have that stuff managed. But I do like that. It's like for me to get started, I don't have to necessarily set up an account with Strapi. I can just
No,
like play around with it,
yeah,
which I think
it's
is really
completely
cool.
open source. We have two different products. One is our community edition, which is open source for you to do what you will with it. And we do have an enterprise edition. And the difference between our enterprise edition is basically you're getting paid support. So
Okay,
if you
that
don't
makes
need it,
sense.
it's like, hey, you're just perfectly fine using the community edition.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. Okay, cool. Nice. Sweet. All right. Well, I've got it downloaded. Looks like I've got a back end and a front end. So where should we start?
Nice. So to make this as effortless as possible, I did add some scripts in the package JSON. So to get started quickly, you could run yarn setup. It's going to go ahead and install all the dependencies.
Sweet. Okay, nice. Yeah, that's super helpful. So set up, what's it, yarn install and the setup the front. Okay,
Yeah,
cool. So you have like
it'll
individual
set up the
scripts.
front
That's
end, the
awesome.
back end,
Nice.
and
Nice.
we'll auto copy the example env files, so you don't have to worry about
Oh, that's
that.
helpful. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you got a little script here. Okay, very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Cool. And so so the back end, that's essentially this is all the
Yep.
Strappy stuff, right? Is that more or less what, going back to Strappy, is that what would basically be generated with like this script or
Yeah, so
no?
when you run, npm create Strapi app at latest, it's gonna
Hmm.
go ahead and generate everything you see in that backend folder.
Okay,
And we
cool.
support both JS and TypeScript.
Nice.
So you have different flexibility with different databases you want to use. Typically, what I do for local production, I use SQLite.
Oh, okay.
And then for when I deploy, I'll just use a Postgres DB or something like that. And for now, we don't have any data because we didn't really start the app yet. But once everything is set up, you'll be able to run yarn seed because I
Okay.
want to seed the initial data that we have, just so we don't have to do that manually. And they'll
Nice.
add a couple of different blog posts and users for us to play around with.
Sweet. That's awesome. And then this front end is just this is like your specific
Yeah, and the
remix
front
app.
end
Okay.
is just like a remix application.
Cool. So do you want me to run yarn seed now, or do you want me
So yeah,
to
now
run
you
anything
could
else
run
first?
yarn seed, and that's gonna go ahead and import all the data to our Strapi backend from our seed/data.tar.gz file.
Okay.
What's cool about Strapi, like when you're working locally, you might and you have a bunch of data, you could use our import or export functionality to make a
Okay.
backup, and you could also use our transfer. So for instance, if you have a local instance of your application and maybe you have it deployed somewhere else and you want to pull that data from your deployed version of Strapi, like in the cloud or DigitalOcean, whatever, we have a transfer command that allows you to pull the data locally and make a backup, which is kind of cool.
Nice. That is cool.
Yeah. So
Okay.
once everything is all set and you see the data, you should be able to run yarn develop. I'm sorry, yarn dev, not develop, yarn dev.
Okay.
That will start the script, which will start both our backend and our front end.
Sweet.
And
So like in back end, I assume you have like
yeah,
okay,
there's a
got it.
yeah,
So that's
exactly.
Strappy
So
Nice.
it's calling yarn develop to get it started, and then the front end we're just running yarn dev.
Whoa. All right. Cool.
Yeah. So once it gets started, you'll be greeted by this uh, screen, which will tell you, hey, you got to create your first admin user, and so you could go ahead and create one.
Sure. And this is like admin specifically for
Yeah.
this
Yeah,
database
and that's a
and
good
whatnot.
point.
Okay,
And this is admin users that are going to be using the Strapi admin area. So if you have your managers, your like marketing managers, your content editors, people that are going to be creating content. And what's awesome, like notice that this is already running. So you could have your content managers like already working in Strapi adding content while developers are just focused on, the front end aspect of it, and they don't have to worry about it. And so once this gets started, we could do a quick tour. If you go into on the left, starting top left, content manager right at the top. Yep. So this is where you're going to see all your content. And
Nice.
right now you see we have our articles, our authors, our categories, and so on. And this is all the collection types that you will create. And a collection type is something that you're going to have many of, like many users, many articles. But if you wanted to have like a single type that you're just going to use once, you would create as a single type. And if you go and click on global, you'll see that here we have some basic metadata. We have a thing where we're storing like our notification banner, which will make sense in a little bit when you see the front end. And then you see our nav bar. You see some of the things that we're storing there for our links, our nav bar logo. We're doing the same thing for the footer. So I'm using it as a place to store just like the global settings for my website. And so now, like if you navigate to localhost 3000, I think our project is already running.
Let's see if I broke something this time.
It might be the fact that check the env file, and I might be using localhost, and I don't know why it's like a Mac issue. Yeah, change it to one, because on my it's the opposite.
Okay.
Like weird. Just do 123 what .0.0.1 I believe.
Is it? I think it's 127.
127, right? Yeah, which is
that's so weird. Yeah, I wonder. I mean, I don't know enough about this. I remember. I'm sure it's true. I gotta restart this.
Hopefully.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Is that like okay, cool, nice.
Yeah, so let me just quickly like Obsidian. So I think when like Mac by default uses IPv6, I believe, or whatever, and so that it, like localhost just breaks whatever, so you need to actually type it out. So my
that makes
Mac,
sense.
I disabled it, so I use the original one, so I don't have that issue. That's just to set some context. But anyway,
that makes sense. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so once the application is running, just like we saw in the global settings, where you see, like if you go to the top, you see our header, you see the Strapi remix, the logo, our navigation. If you scroll to the bottom, you see our footer. Also, you see this floating get started with Strapi Cloud. All of that content is being served from that single type global that we saw. So if you go back into the Strapi admin, so like right here, if you want to add like another about page or so on, like you could do that just to test. And what's awesome about this is that this gives the power to boom, it's right there. And if you click it, it's going to be not found because we didn't create that page in Remix. And one thing that I realized that I didn't actually implement in this application is that you could make your pages dynamic route. And so that way, no matter how many pages people add, you just have the slug and they'll find that page by that slug, whatever. But there's many ways of doing it. But
that would be
so
cool.
now
So you're saying like in here instead of,
if you go to routes, like for instance, I have exactly, you would create a new file
or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, and it could be like whatever. And but for right now, if you go to just the index.tsx file, actually, I'm lying to you. Go to root.tsx first because we do have our header and our footer being our layout. So what we're doing here is we have our nav bar and our footer because we want to make them visible in all of our different pages. We have them right inside the root.tsx file. And inside the loader, we're getting our data from the global. So if you see it, like for the path, I'm making a call to like the global endpoint, which is basically retrieving all the data from that single type. So if you go back to your Strapi admin one more time.
Sure.
So for each collection type that you set up, if you go on the left on the bottom menu to go to settings.
Down. So, down here.
Right there. Perfect. And then if you navigate to user permissions plugin under roles. So go one more below that. So that's let's back up. So notice how we have administration panel roles and users, but we also have users permission plugin roles and users. And it's like, why would you have different type of users? So here's the interesting thing. So you have folks that are going to just interact with Strapi admin panel. So your backend. So they're going to where your backend is being hosted, and they're logging in through the Strapi admin. And so these are the users that have access to manage the content. And what you could do here, like if you go to authenticated roles, I think you're still on. So
go to this one or
Yeah, so you're
Okay.
still in user permissions right now, but if you
Oh.
go up, click roles and users. So
Okay.
here, this is for the Strapi admin panel. So this is what we actually see right now. So you could create as many roles as you want, but out the box, you have author,
Nice.
editor, super admin. And what this does, this allows
Oh,
you
cool.
to
Okay.
granularly control like what can those users access or do on the Strapi admin. So you could have a super user admin that has access to everything, and then
Yeah.
you could actually have certain users that only allowed to see certain things, and that's kind of cool. Like I like that about you could have multiple people working on different things, and they only get to only see the things that they need to.
Yeah,
And this
that's
is
super helpful.
pertains, to the Strapi admin panel. If you go to users permission plugin, that's like, let's say you have a website and you could click on roles and we have authenticated, guest, or public. And if you think of your endpoint, like you could click on public. Yeah. So if you click on public and you see articles, authors, categories, global, all those like collection types, when you create them in Strapi, they will create an endpoint. So if you click on global, just since we're talking about it, you see that publicly, like if you're not an authenticated user, we just want to give you permission to see, to get that data. And we're only enabling the find method. If you scroll up to articles and you extend that, again, for public access, we want you to be able to access to find one and find. And if you check one and uncheck it, and check it. And you see like where you see on the right top, it says, hey, we're making a get request to app articles where you pass the ID. And that kind of shows you like what the endpoint is. So by default, when you start Strapi, all the endpoints are closed down. And so depending on what type of access you want, if you want it to be freely publicly available, you would go ahead on the roles public and you would say, hey, find and find one. And
It's kind of cool. Yeah.
you could also do, hey, what if someone making an authenticated request, right? So if you go to roles again, so you could hit the back
this
button.
one up here?
No, the one you're in.
The one I'm in. Okay, cool.
And then click authenticated. Yep. And so if you click on articles,
Oh, wait. This one.
yep, and you'll see that we also have find and find one enabled. And so the difference here is it's like this request requires a JWT token. And so this way, this will be hit when a user is authenticated. And what's cool through Strapi, like middleware, you could actually check. So if you go to the Remix application that you have running on localhost, if you go to login and the password, the user is test user and the password is test user, and you click login, notice how some of the blog posts say premium and some say free. And so what I ended up is, because Strapi is customizable, and I made like really basic logic, but if you go into the VS Code and you go into the backend folder,
yeah, let me just open it up.
Yep, and then you scroll down to source, and you click APIs, and you go to article. There's going to be a folder called middleware if you open it. Yep.
Okay.
Articles middleware, and here basically, I'm checking to see if the user is logged in. Adding all the filters, and I'm actually checking if the article is premium or not. If they're not authorized, just return non-premium content. If they're authorized, return both premium and non-premium, so they could view everything.
Okay,
and
interesting.
This is go ahead. And if you have any questions at any time,
I'm just trying to like.
So
fully understand
whenever we hit this middleware, if the user's logged in, they will be available in CTX state.user, and so basically you're able to check, is there a logged in user? If so, do A or B. And again, this is a very simple example, but I just wanted to kind of showcase that in Strapi, you're able to create and add additional, like for instance, if you go to like, category and like open category, notice how we don't have a middlewares folder. And so it's well, how come the other one had? So you're able to add additional functionality to Strapi programmatically. So you're able to add a middlewares folder to put all your middlewares in. You could add your policies folder if you wanted to add additional policies, and so on.
Cool.
And if you just since you already and if you go, let's say, to articles controller, what's interesting here, you're gonna see this factory function which has nothing in there, but as a second param here, you could pass an object and you could define additional controllers. So if you wanted to add, like in your VS Code is pretty smart there, but if you wanted to add like additional, so exactly, you could actually overwrite existing controllers, which I wouldn't recommend, but you could also create custom controllers or extend controllers and add whatever logic you need. And I love that flexibility of Strapi because as a front-end developer, I was able to, get started really quickly, not needing to know any of this. But as I started to improve, my development skills, I was like, hey, like I want to learn a little bit more backend, but I don't want to build my own Node or Express API or whatever. It's like I could little by little just start integrating all these concepts in Strapi, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's super cool. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. So like each of these, this is your API. This is like what, so it's like folder-based APIs basically. Yes. You're building out, and for each of these you have like these different things like routes, service, middlewares. Okay, cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I like the middleware thing. That's a helpful example. So basically you're just saying, hey, if you're hitting the article API, always check if there's a user, and if that user exists, then you're just like automatically adding that. Hey, they can see all these. Where are these filters actually used though? I guess is where I was curious.
So they're going to get passed to the controller, and then the controller is going to pass it to a service, and you won't be able to see those services because they're using they're created for you and built from the factory function. So you could see them inside the Node package folder, but cool. Basically they get consumed by Strapi, and under the hood it will just use whatever database you're using. And we have I don't remember what, like I think we are using connects basically to write all the queries and
okay, got it,
to working with the database.
Nice.
Yeah, that's
is it. Yeah, where is the database set
so
up?
If you go to .cache, I believe if you go like scroll up a little bit, temp folder. Sorry. Yep, I'm lying to you. Right there, DataDB. That's your SQLite.
SQLite, yeah. Okay.
But you could have it pointed to Postgres.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
We don't support Mongo. I know a lot of people. There are Mongo lovers out there.
Yeah. I mean, just having the options. That's all we really want, right?
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, cool. So should we build something?
So one thing I wanted to show you, so I'm constantly trying to add new features to this application, and the latest feature that I was adding is this ability for logged in users to be able to update their profile. Okay. And so if you go to and click on the test user, so here you're able to update your image, you're able to update your name. So you could click on, you could test it out. Brooks is really awesome. Just put that Paul. It's not as cool as Brooks. And then you could upload a update that will update it. And if you have a file to upload, you could choose a file.
I don't even know if I do. Oh, here we can just pick a remix one.
Yeah. Use the PNG. I'm not sure if I checked for SVG.
No, that's okay.
And if you click update, I don't know if you did already. Yeah, and so if you go back into Strapi admin.
Oh wait, in the admin.
The front end of Strapi. Yeah.
And actually the
into code. So go. I mean, right here. Sorry, I'm
cool.
And
you're
go
good.
To content manager, and you go on to users. Yep.
Okay.
In that second column, and you could click test user. You should be able to see all that updated data. Everything works. And so what we could do, we could go to the profile.tsx file in Remix, and we could kind of talk about it a little bit. And I could tell you some basic gotchas. And this is what I love, like Remix, is because it really kind of encourages you to learn more about just the standard web APIs and how things work. And so what I'm doing here is... we are at the top. So hold on, scroll up a little bit. Let me just see. Yeah, so we have a loader here that gets a user me, which is basically will call Strapi and be like, hey, is there an actually logged in user? If so, let's go ahead and return that user. And if that user is not logged in, just redirect to login.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. So instead of just checking like JWT token and cookies, we actually like, or saving that user and like it was like, hey, let's actually ask our backend, is that user logged in? And then if we scroll, so that's basically gets the profile data and all that other great stuff as well. You could kind of collapse that if you want that function. So we could look at the action.
Good. Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. Sure.
Unless you have questions. So
No, that makes sense. It's pretty straightforward.
yeah.
Yeah. This is
So
where it seems like it gets a little more complicated.
yeah, and so here is our action to get the data of using, getting. So let's go back to the form.
Sure.
So if you scroll
like
down,
down below.
yeah, and it's
Okay.
a user profile form, and you open it. So where are we getting this data? We're getting it from the Remix form, and
Okay.
we're going to make a post request because we're getting the data, like we're posting the data to Strapi, and like we're getting this through the normal form functionality of how form, like just HTML forms pass data, which is kind of cool. And one caveat I had, because whenever I was trying to post the image to the Remix form, I wasn't getting it. And like the big call out there is, hey, make sure you define the enc type, and you say we want multi-part form data. It costs money. Like
There's like,
yeah. If you don't,
it's like these
right.
three options. Yeah.
So yeah, and so very, very important, because that was a bunch of headaches for me. But otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. And if we go to
cool. So
the
I'm just trying to
action,
find like where it actually didn't put it. Okay.
yeah. So an
this
image.
is like what you're saying.
Yep. So basically, the image field is just a basic input field. The only difference within this component, it also shows the preview image, but it's basically like a simple file input. And so we're going off the name, and that's passing all of our, once we submit the form, it passes all our data to our action. And another thing, in Remix, there's, I guess, two different upload providers. I ended up going with unstable create a memory upload handler. And I guess you could reference the docs if people are interested to kind of showcase.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And I think like there's two, but what I learned, I haven't tried it yet. You also have upload provider compose, where you could actually compose and use both of them, because I think they function slightly different, which I didn't dive too deep into how they work. I just wanted to get my app to work as a, like my whole thing, like when building stuff, is like get it to work and then refactor afterwards, like because building something perfect is just pain in the butt. But this was like really good documentation. And like I said, like my biggest gotcha was not the documentation, is me just forgetting the basics of web and forgetting that form expects like, enc type property that you should probably define to tell what kind of stuff you want. And I think it's kind of cool, because what's awesome about like learning Remix, like, yeah, you have documentation, but a lot of the stuff I'm learning and building, I'm just going to MDN and reading just the web basic stuff. And that's kind of cool. Like, I don't know if it like, like I heard people say, and this is something that, I've been coming like and learning about Remix, is that there's many frameworks. Like, and I'm not gonna say any other framework by name, but you could be like, hey, framework A, if you do it more often, you will become better at framework A. And I feel like with Remix, you just become better at web. And I don't know if I'm a little bit biased because I love Remix now, but I think there's something to it.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, that was like a big motivator for me to start, or not to start learning Remix, but rather why like I stuck with it, because I just felt like I felt like it was it just was a treasure trove of knowledge, and it like really kind of forced me, not in a way of like, oh, I've got to like work around Remix, but it's like, hey, if you want to do something that's like a standard web thing, here's the way. Like we might create like, cookies is a good example where they basically here we go. With cookies, it's like that's just standard web stuff, and they have like a create cookie like function, and so they have some like little wrappers that maybe make a couple things nicer or a little bit easier. Same with like this unstable, which I'm trying to remember why. There's a reason this is still unstable and might unfortunately not change, at least not for a while. I think it's something about like browser compatibility or something. I could be wrong. But anyway, it's like, okay, yes, it does like some of the really low level stuff that you don't want to do for you, but
Yeah.
it still is like encouraging you to use those regular APIs and actually use like an input with a file and all that kind of stuff, like you were saying.
Yeah,
That's
no,
cool.
exactly. And one of the other things I like about Remix, and because I don't think like I'm like the smartest developer ever. I just want to like build cool things, and I feel like the entry, like barrier to entry, is very easy, because once you understand, like in this example, we have our action function, we have our loader function. Once you understand those, and then like literally like I want to throw errors, so you use an error boundary. I didn't put one here, but that's fine. But it's just so easy for you to think. And here's the coolest thing here. If
Yeah.
when you updated that, this is what I'm going to say, like blows my mind. This is like magic of Remix, is when you updated the photo in the profile, it automatically updated the photo in the top nav. I didn't have to think about it. So like if you scroll up, you see like
that's
the
super
top
nice.
nav,
Okay,
that's automatically, gets updated and changed, which is like so cool to me, because as a new developer, like it's just like I don't have to, I could focus on just building, and that is really, really nice and really cool. And
zoom out so we can actually see it.
yeah, and it's pretty neat. And so I love the fact that like there's like a lot of stuff that just gets handled. It's like too small.
Got it.
But it's fine. It's there. It's right there. It's beautiful, and I love that about how React Router just does that under the hood, which is pretty cool. And what I was talking to like a couple of different people. Everybody has their opinions, and I know like server components is like the hottest rage right now. Everybody's like, oh, you just got to do everything. And one thing I've noticed for beginners, like some people like don't even like, especially if they're new, like they might not know the fact that what happens like on a server component and what happens in your front end, there is no state that's in between. Like there's this like complexity that arises. And like, I feel like when I'm learning or just want to build something, like I don't want to deal with new concepts that maybe like I don't quite understand, and I don't want it to stop my velocity from building stuff. And so I did an interesting experience, unnamed framework, which I'm not going to name, but I built a project with that, and then I rebuilt a similar project using Remix, and it was just so much quicker. And again, I don't want to say like I'm biased, but it's just less things to think about.
Sure.
And if there's like a lesson to this, I am a lazy dev. I want to make my life as easy as possible, because people like Paul, like Remix is a full stack thing. Like you could just set up like Prisma and just make your like directly to the database. I'm like, yeah, great, but it takes time. I'm lazy, so I'll just use Strapi and Remix. And what's awesome, it's like,
well, I think to me, it's like a CMS, like the big benefit as well is like, if you ever are going to have someone non-technical, like working with you at all, like great. If you were the only person owning your entire website and like, and you really like not being lazy or whatever, and you like doing it hard, cool, have a database. But like, as soon as you have a non-technical person, you're going to have some entry point anyway, right? And for them to be able to change stuff or write a blog or whatever, unless you are always going to like do that yourself. So just, you're going to end up building a CMS anyway. And that's like, so you might as well just use one that is a little bit more battle tested, already exists. And like, again, I think like, there are other ones out there. You can go do your own research or whatever, but something that's really cool about Strapi is the fact that it's like, it's open source. If you don't like something, if you think something if you find a bug, like you can go submit a PR, and I don't know. 100%. So you still like have the control, but a lot of stuff's just built for you that you don't have to build yourself.
Yeah.
So.
And that's a great point you're making, because a lot of times, again, there's so many, like for me, like my one example is Strapi really helped me as a new developer build full stack applications. But there are other use cases like, hey, we have a lot of data that needs to be managed by a lot of people, and they are non-technical, and they need to be able to easily do that. And so, hey, Strapi has that admin area that allows you to do that. Also, I talked to a couple of people, PostHog, they have a great website. And they powered their backend with PostHog source. That one. Cool. So they had a very interesting like integration of it, because and I told them they should probably do this with Remix, but they don't want to listen to me because it's with something else. I guess but here's an interesting thing. Like they had all of their content is living in Git and GitHub. And so they're like, well,
Whoa.
we still want Git to be the source of truth for our articles, but you know what? We want to integrate, comments and forum. And so they actually have their forum section powered by Strapi and like the users' information and all that other stuff. So it's kind of cool where it's like Strapi doesn't have to be a whole thing, but it could be responsible for bits of your
Just a piece,
platform, which is pretty cool. And so I don't know if you have any other questions like around this and anything you want to take a look at. Yeah.
I just want to talk about a little bit. Okay, so like I liked how this did update really quickly. That's super cool. But like, yeah, let's like maybe just walk through that for someone who maybe isn't familiar. So first of all, like how's this data getting in here? Like where is that in the code?
Yeah, so like that's coming from root.tsx.
Okay.
And that is in this loader here. Exactly. So we're getting we're making fetch Strapi data. And if you look at the path, if you scroll up a little bit, notice how we're saying global. And that refers to our single type collection type called global that we saw, which was responsible for the top nav, bottom nav, and like some basic meta information. So this is what's interesting. This is coming from there. Exactly. So if you take
all this stuff. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's coming from there. And then also if we so this is for the top stuff. Now let's go into go back to the root.tsx, and I'm also getting user from user.me, and that's where the user profile image is coming from. Okay. So like it's not only going to return like the logged in user, but we have access to the user name, the user image, and what I'm doing is once I get that data from my loader, I'm passing it to the navbar. So there I'm passing as a user, and yep, exactly.
So yeah, okay. So you got this user, and then it's probably
and then you pass it. We have the avatar component, and I'm really bad at naming stuff, but avatar component basically like renders the the user username and image.
Cool. Okay, and then you've got a get Strapi media.
Yeah.
What is this function doing?
So that's a great question. So right now we're running our project locally. And so all of the files are stored inside your project. So I think it's in public, and I think there's the images folder. And whenever you make a call to that API, you don't get the root URL, but you're going to get /uploads and the name of the file. So it's like somewhere. And then what Get Strapi Media does, it checks, hey, if it's local, like path / upload / name image, go ahead and append the root of the URL, like localhost, like whatever. But if and let me know if I'm making sense, because sometimes I don't make sense. But it basically is gonna append the rest of the URL. But if you're hosting, because we have Strapi has many integrations. We have integration with Amazon AWS. We have integration with Cloudinary. So if you're hosting your project on Cloudinary, you're going to be getting, you could like Google that, boom, right there.
Cool. Okay. Nice.
Or you could go into Marketplace. This is just an example in the post showing how to add it to your project.
This is just blog. I see.
Yeah, but Cloudinary Strapi Market. Yeah, exactly. So we have all these different providers. And so when you're using Cloudinary, you're actually returning the full URL path. And so basically what Get Strapi Media does, it just checks, is it local or is it coming from like Cloudinary or AWS or whatever. And so just make sure you convert it to what we want in order to render the images, if that makes sense.
Cool. Yep, that totally makes sense. Okay, cool. So then you get your image URL. So that's why, like, when we over here, when we like submitted, basically that causes the loader to rerun.
Yes.
And then when it reruns, it gets a new, like it reruns this, gets user, and then passes that down. That gets passed to that avatar. Cool.
That's correct. Yeah.
That's awesome. You could we could probably There's a little bit of parallelization we could do here for sure.
Yeah.
So you don't
I'm
have like a
still,
waterfall here, but
still
little
working
stuff.
on it, and still,
No, I know.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just giving people ideas
No, it's
to see new
awesome.
PRs.
Yeah.
So
And like I said,
that's
this
cool.
is open to the public. I actually don't want to be the only person like working
Yeah.
on this. So if anybody wants to make some PRs and give some feedback, 100%, you could fork it, use it the way you want, or you could, help out and help us get it better.
Yeah, I love it. That's super cool. And these are, yeah, pretty solid docs. Like this is pretty much everything we went through, it looks like. Oh, and you also have like contributing. That's great. Contributing
Yeah,
guides.
like
That's
we
always
do
really
want to
cool.
encourage people.
Sweet,
And
man.
here's one thing I want to say, like someone could be watching
Yeah.
this. I know there's 10x developers, people who just like float in the clouds because how awesome they are, like building things blindfolded. But not everybody else like starts there. 'Cause there's like newer developers, and sometimes
No,
like
yeah.
and newer developers come like in many like sizes and forms. Some do the CS degree, some are self-taught, some do boot camp. But one thing that I found out is that for newer developers, like they do get intimidated, like trying to release or put something out in public. And the reason why I have this Strapi starter, like outside of loving Remix and Strapi, but I just wanted to put something out there in public to kind of show by example, is like, hey, you don't have to be the number one developer. You could just start building, and then you're going to get some feedback, good or bad. Like you're still getting feedback and you're improving. And what's awesome is that, like, again, like I know like many different types of folks will watch this, but for beginners out there, the biggest thing is like I keep doing tutorials to learn, and I never feel comfortable enough of building my own thing. It's like, well, how do you start? You just do it. You just build it and you put it out in public. And if you ask like Brooks, when I like, here's the funny thing: a lot of people like Paul, like I just talk a lot, but dude, like you're such a great public speaker. But it's not just because I was born a good public speaker. It's because
Right.
I actually trying to get out there, and one of the places is how I met Brooks at Remix Austin meetup, and talking trash on YouTube also helps, by the way. But like I went like, but my first interaction with you, like I went to the meetup and I was like, hey, like, would it be cool if I give a little talk, like? And you're like, yeah, it'll be great. And at that time, by the way, I knew nothing about Remix. So it was cool because it allowed me to practice talking about something, but also motivated me to like step out of my comfort zone and learn something. Which, again, I can't thank you enough, Brooks, anyway, because interesting story. If you were at the last Remix Conf, you might have seen my pre-talk, which was pretty awesome, also talking about Strapi and this starter, which is pretty cool. And the way I got this opportunity is the power of networking. So like if I've never met Brooks, I probably would have never had that opportunity. So let me tell you a little story. So especially for newer developers, networking and building connections is huge. It's probably the number one thing that I would say you should do. So I started going to the meetup. I met Brooks. Brooks like, hey, you gave a couple of talks. You sound kind of cool. You're not crazy. And then, he was like, hey, there's going to be a Remix Conf like EU, I think, and they're looking for an MC, and it'll be like cool if, like, I think it'll be a great opportunity for you. And I literally found that opportunity from you and had just a referral that led me doing that thing, which then kind of brought me into a little bit more of a closer contact to Kenzie Dodds and Remix, and it was kind of cool. And I invited him to do a talk like on Strapi like a while ago, and so my name was starting to become like, Paul's not some like random dude, but Paul kind of actually does something with Remix. And then eventually, like, I don't even know how it happened, probably like Brooks and everybody at Remix, thank you. I got to give my talk, got accepted, which was like blowing my mind. It was like my first big like talk, and I didn't care. It was like pre-talk. Like, it was still just, it was amazing, such an amazing opportunity. And to me, I'm still in disbelief. Like I went from some random dude on the internet to like giving talk about Remix. And this is what I want to say, the power of community. And I think Remix has a really good community, and Brooks, you're doing an amazing job. And so there you go.
Oh, well, thanks, Paul. I really appreciate it. I promise I didn't have Paul on just to say that I'm doing a great job. But
listen, you got to give like, no, but you got to give credit where it's due. And it's literally like, it's just so funny. Like, I don't want to like, keep talking, but it is all about being on a team. I don't know who and working together. Like I don't know who said this quote, but I guess leave with this. There's a quote that says, "Alone I could go fast, but with a
Mm,
team or a community I could go far." And I really believe that. Like you
mm,
go far by working together.
I love it. That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's good and really good advice. And yeah, I'm totally with you. Like, man, it's so like if you're just trying to build something, if you're trying to learn everything all at once, at least for me, that's just the quickest way to like give up. Yeah, I don't know. It's always hard. Like I'm trying to kind of learn guitar. I played a lot in high school, and I'm just trying to pick it up again. And it's like, I used to write songs and stuff in high school. So it's like, I wanted to start just writing songs immediately again. I'm like, you can't do all those pieces. Like, I need to start back on just like doing my chord progressions or doing like really simple finger picking or whatever. And so, yeah, as a metaphor, it's just like, yeah, Strapi makes building the database easy. If you're not interested in building databases, like just use something like Strapi and just get started with that and work on your front end skills. And yeah, if you're super excited about, the back end stuff, then cool. Like focus on that stuff and like use something really easy for the front end. Like that's totally fine. No one, hopefully no one's judging you for all that. But yeah, and then get involved with community, find people on the internet, find people locally. I think that's all just really, really great advice, Paul.
Yeah, and I just gonna give to your point like how like do things in progression, very important. And so I use like obviously Remix Strapi for everything because I also work at Strapi. It would be kind of weird if I didn't use it. But I also like when I started, building like I have like lots of little projects, doing a remix with Prisma, and like because I had and kind of had the experience with Strapi and the basic contractual databases, I was like, oh, now I get it. I see why. Oh, okay, this makes sense. And so it's pretty cool. It's pretty awesome.
That's cool. That's awesome. Sweet. Well, thanks so much for coming on today, Paul. Really enjoyed this conversation and yeah, getting a bit of an overview of what Strapi is and how you can use it. So really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brooks. And everybody have a great one.
See you.